Cause you're listening to Jams and Tea, you won't see the show on your TV, so we talk about things musically. Cause you're listening to Jams and Tea, you're listening to Jams and Tea.
Okay, welcome everyone to a very special record club.
Guys, the cat's talking.
Welcome everyone to a very special record club episode of the Jams and Tea podcast, where we spin the jams and spill the tea. Today we are joined by a very special guest. Just staring at
me. Hello, Judy Dench from Cats.
I would say that we at least have two guests. I feel like even though the cat is the primary guest, but I deserve some level of filling.
Yes,
but
so we are,
maybe not.
We are joined, of course, by the inimitable Zach, who has joined us before on the podcast twice.
What are you talking about? Why is Jake so different?
The artwork and
yeah, to discuss liturgy and bright eyes.
You have food in your cheek like a chipmunk.
What?
This is so chaotic already.
So I should also point out as well, if you didn't see the main episode this week, Jake is not joining us this week, but never fear. We, as I said, we have Zach and we have this cat. Lily is the name of the cat. It's currently licking her asshole, so I'll just
yeah, I think that's for the best.
I'll just bring it back to me. But yeah, so I am going to shut up now, actually, and pass over to Saoirse, who is the person who recommended this record, and she can sort of discuss why she recommended it.
So this recommendation actually came out of a conversation I had with Zach on Twitter, just not very long after we started the podcast. It was a new wave of all-star memes going around for some reason, and I was just like, everyone is just like shitting on this song and sort of making fun of the naffness of it, but every time I listen to it, all I hear is like this absolute banger. So let's take the song and the album and give it some context, which is probably why I want to talk about the album and not just the song, and talk about it not just as the meme it is, although that's important to talk about it, but as a piece of music that deserves an honest sort of cultural assessment, be that good or bad, which I think we're going to have a smattering of both today. So that's why I wanted to talk about this record. Sort of irrespective of quality, of how good it is, I want to assess it and why it's had the impact it has, and actually just talk about it as a record. Is the record good or bad? You know, as a piece of music. Now I'm going to hand over to our guest, Zach, because I really, really want to hear what he has to say.
Well, thank you, Saoirse. That was a really good introduction. Let's start here. Let's actually, we can't really do this review starting in 2020. We have to we have to rewind and take it back to 1999 when this album was released. 1999, of course, that's the best Tom Cruise year. He was in Magnolia and Eyes Wide Shut.
It was the year I was born.
The year Morgan was born, the miracle of life. It was also the year that Donkey Kong 64 was born, the year that Tony Hawk Pro Skater came out. And the reason that I'm saying all these things is because, at least for me, this album is like a major nostalgia trip. There's no way to listen to any part of it and not immediately be taken back to the year.
Dude, I was playing the Resident Evil 2 remake and listening to this, and it was like, where am I? Where am I?
It's a time warp. It totally, like, the way that this album functions on some level is the first note that I have, actually. And I made it more than once because I made it on the first song, and then I made the note again once I got to Then the Morning Comes. We'll kind of break into the tracks of this thing a little bit, I assume. But when I got to Then the Morning Comes, I went back and underlined the first note that I made was, look up the year that Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me came out. And it turns out that it was 1999. And the reason that's relevant is because it's the only thing I could think of while listening to this album. which is interesting because All Star is sort of the meme single. It's been in a bunch of movies and everybody's kind of got a place where they associate that song. But as soon as I listened to this album, I wasn't thinking about that track. I wasn't thinking about all the ways that I've thought about that track or the memes or the references. I was immediately thrust back into the year 1999, and I was thinking about Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, because that movie and this album have exactly the same energy, which is not a compliment, but is a factual assessment, I think. Smash Mouth, how to describe them. You probably, if you're listening to this, have heard All Star at some point or another in your life, or you've heard one of their other singles, such as Walking on the Sun from their 1997 record, Fu Shu Meng, which I doubt I'm going to get anybody that listens to this and doesn't like it to listen to that. But if you really detested this album, that album actually is a little bit more put together. That's a proper ska punk release, and it's also kind of got the same pop rock energy that this does. And together, you can kind of make out the impression of a band that was really influenced by like Operation Ivy and other 80s hip hop acts, and is almost the forebear of contemporary power pop and ska influenced act Jeff Rosenstock, whether you're talking about like Bomb the Music Industry or you know, his solo projects. This is an infinitely worse version of it, but you can detect the outline of it. And I think the reason for that is mainly that guitarist Greg Camp is bona fide. Most of the musicians in this band, actually, I would argue, are very competent. And when it comes to
notable prominent exception,
with one exactly, I like where your head's at, because that's right where I'm going to, because the vocalist Steve Harwell is not good ever.
No.
And that's really my takeaway from Astro Lounge. Again, we can kind of get into tracks that are better than others, tracks that are worse than others, and like kind of the way that this thing functions. But one of the reasons that I think that Fu Shu Meng kind of is better than this is because this album plays so far away from not only the band's strengths, but Harwell's strengths. Because I find that on songs like Satellite and Radio and I gotta look at the actual track name, but it starts with, it's the second track. It's Diggin', was what I wrote down. What's the
Diggin' Your Scene?
Yeah, Diggin' Your Scene.
Diggin' Your Scene.
Highlight.
On those tracks where you know it's bouncy, it's very bass driven, and he can kind of use his voice to do like a sing along chorus style of singing, or in the power pop ska influenced style. That stuff works pretty well. When it's Roadman, it's really terrible.
Yeah.
Because you can do exactly one style, but this album, for some reason, is asking him to do like early 2000s REM for some reason. It's not quite Django pop, but it has like that weird like kind of alt rock sort of it's like power pop. It's just ooh.
It's like if you played Around the Sun at 2 times speed.
Oh, that's so good.
But yeah, it's a really deeply inconsistent record where every single song has notable flaws, and some of the songs have notable strengths. And most of the time, those strengths are the guitar playing of Greg Camp or the bass playing of Delisle. And that's really the long and short of it. Like it's a longer record. It's 50 minutes, but it's like 15 tracks, which is like 3.5 minutes per track. So it's a record that has a pace that where it, at no point, regardless of how much you may or may not enjoy it, it's never like completely doing ridiculous stuff. Like it's not. It sort of understands that it's a pop album at least, and that each of these songs is kind of meant to be short, sweet, digestible, and it was exactly that. And it was a popular album in '99. I think even then, as a kid, I knew that I didn't like it as much as Fu Shu Meng, which had way more of like an edge and a like a not even in terms of aggressiveness. It was just a record that was always trying to be fun Whereas this record is always kind of trying to do a pastiche. It's a 90s album. It's super, super dated to the 90s, but it's also like trying to be this throwback thing where it's looking back again to like the ska of like the 80s and different styles that are kind of like more psychedelic at points. And it never really finds it never finds within its concept, which is to be this kind of pastiche Astro Lounge weird.
Well, like also it establishes that the theme of the title as well, this kind of like spacey setting and vibe with the first song, and does that really, really nicely, which I actually really first song's really good. And then just completely fucking abandons it.
Yeah, it's so true.
Okay. One thing I want to briefly touch on, because Zach made a point of this being a popular album at the time. I actually went on Wikipedia, went through all of the critic review scores at the time, and came up with kind of an equivalent of a Jansen T average for what this record received in its time.
You Metacritic'd it.
Yeah, basically. That being a 7.1 out of 10. And here's what you'll find interesting. The albums that we have scored at 7.1, and this will make Saoirse in particular furious at that.
Okay.
Black Dress is Peaceful as Hell, and Against Me is As the Eternal Cowl.
Definitely that's the category of those records.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that up as kind of a brief, silly point.
That's interesting to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Also,
I
changed
think
my background. I just wanted to contribute to the mood that we're setting here.
Oh god.
That's another like childhood song.
Oh, that's I'm Blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of
this is coming from Tyler.
I think a band that I really associate with Smash Mouth a lot because they kind of synced up on years, because I think it was 97 that the Smash Mouth debut came out. Was the same year as that Chumbawamba single, I Get Knocked Down, but I Get Up Again.
Tub Thumping.
And that's another band with a really strong pedigree outside of that song.
Right, where they're an anarcho-punk band that suddenly just drops this single out of nowhere. And so like I've always kind of associated Smash Mouth with them, although when you revisit Fushimeng, you realize that they were always kind of the Chumbawamba that everybody thinks of when like that was always kind of Smash Mouth's ceiling a little bit. Even the kind of superior first record, in my opinion, it's not like it still has a bad vocalist. I cannot get behind Steve. He's not good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The thing about Smash Mouth is whenever I think about Smash Mouth, I think about like being a young band, new musicians, like playing in dive bars and wherever you can get in your local scene. And I just can't imagine like you're at like your shitty nightclub and they're like, and next on the roster is Smash Mouth. And they come out and do a set and you're like, yes, this works in this setting. I would like to give them money to see them again. And it's just how like they are a studio album band. That's their sound to me. I can't imagine how like they would have worked in like a lo-fi local scene and built up their fan base.
I think you can hear it with as I've mentioned, Camp's guitar playing, in particular on the song Satellite, like it's just these little flourishes. I think like around 3 minutes in that song, there's just like a guitar lick where you're like, oh, this guy has it. You know, this guy would be the guitarist in a great punk band, but he's not doing that here. And that's kind of sort of the way of Smash Mouth to me. It's got pieces, it's got moments, and it almost never puts them all together on this album. It's one of those weird things where, again, this kind of has a big nostalgia tint for me, but it feels like its window as an album is about this big, just like the window of Austin Powers was about that big, just like the window of Donkey Kong 64 was about this big. It was just this era that came and went, and it had its own culture, and it was ephemeral. Like lots of, Eyes Wide Shut, as I mentioned at the beginning of the 99 thing, like that lasted, but most culture is ephemeral.
Donkey Kong 64 has lasted longer than any of those other things mentioned.
It's so true. It's so true.
But I think if you look at like I love making video game to music comparisons. If you can't tell, I've done it every time I've shown up on this show. But the thing about that game is like it's the same way as this. Like it's got these moments that are good, and then you put it as a whole, and it doesn't hold up well. The other thing I thought of when I was taking notes on this was Goldeneye. Just that whole N64 era of like things that we loved and were super into, and then you revisit and you're like, oof, no, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
I got an HDMI to AV adapter this year, and I hooked up the N64 and tried to play GoldenEye, and I lasted about 10 minutes.
And that's what listening to Smash Mouth in 2020 is like.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, they all existed in this sort of period of like a few years in the 90s. So it's like post death of Kurt Cobain, where culture was more like the people, young people who had started on this quite take ourselves seriously, but also don't give a shit movement. And now they're like, what is our culture now that we are gravitating towards? And it is, in a way, this more sort of frivolous. This is how we get into post-irony later. Where it's just we are riding with the frivolousness, fuck you, fuck older generations, we have our own thing. And
I think eventually that sort of bleeds into that pop punk movement. You get Blink 182 and you get all these different things that come after that, but you just one like grain of it was Smash Mouth, and I think we all would have forgotten except for the sort of lead, which I have intentionally buried because I would like to hear other people's thoughts on the album, because I think that there is a single on this album that every single person in the world, I have to imagine, has heard at least once. And I'd like to talk about that kind of decontextualized. The only all-star note that I really want to give in terms of Astro Lounge is that it is, not that this album is super cohesive or unified in any way. It is super out of place. And not just because of my familiarity with it. It is like tonally, you go from track 4 to track 5 to track 6, and it's just like, there's just this song there that clearly is inserted, which I'll talk a little bit more about because I think that the kind of history of All-Star is pretty interesting, actually. But I don't want to talk too much about that before listening to what other people think about the record.
Well, I mean, it's a bad album.
Yeah.
But it fails. Like, I give it one credit, is that for the most part it fails in interesting ways. Or at least ways that do seem to, like, I have to admit, approaching this when Saoirse recommended it for our record club, I was a bit confused because I was like, it has this meme song on it, I get that, but like, really, I mean, what else is there going to be to talk about with this album? Like, what is the identity of this record? What is the narrative of the album that's going to make it interesting to...
Sorry, the cat is so close to the camera. He's just looking right at me.
It's also like getting the background on it a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's nice.
So yeah. So it's like, it's yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's strange approaching this record because I really didn't have any idea of what to expect from it.
This is a nightmarish image. It looks like the cat is like giving birth to your head while licking itself.
Dude, this
in the background is Smash Mouth, and I feel like I'm losing my mind.
This posthumous Obayashi movie looks really awesome.
So who's there? It's an interesting opener. Like I said, it kind of does establish this kind of theme for the album. It has a kind of like pulse to it, and it sounds, I don't know, it definitely sounds of its time, but I dig it. I think it's a solid track. Where the fuck are my notes? It has a spacey but fun groove that I really dig. I've already said I really love, like legitimately just love the song Digging Your Scene. I just find it super fun and irreverent. It's stupid in a way that is just genuinely charming, that I think the record goes for frequently, but seldom actually, it doesn't often land. So that's nice that it kind of does there. Yeah, so I dig that track a fair bit.
I'm looking at a fever dream.
That's what listening to this record is like in some ways.
Yeah, I was just trying to simulate that. So the thing is, like, the album, like, I wrote this before I really got to the back half of the record, but like the album sounds of its time, but honestly in 2020 I think that's kind of the whole appeal of it. I am definitely a little too young, I think, to fully appreciate the true extent the full extent of this album's kitsch. But there are still like elements of tracks like Digging Your Scene and most of the first half of the record that do kind of take me back to my childhood. And it's kind of and also the kind of irreverent and silly bands that my dad would play growing up. Stuff like new wave stuff like Devo in particular. It's just the kind of, and this to me is kind of like the 90s pop rock Americanized version of that. And I can kind of get down with that to an extent, like conceptually. But the record just drags. It's just, it becomes after a certain point like I'm losing touch with reality. Like there's a moment in one song, I can't remember which song it was, but Steve fucking Berwin or whatever his name is.
Harwell.
Harwell, fucking, yeah.
Guy Fieri.
There's a discount Chino Marino. There's a moment. There's like one photo. I've seen a bunch of photos of him where he has the same.
No, I get what you mean. It just took me a second.
Yeah. So there's a moment in one track where I can't remember which one it was, where he sings "Some May Say" or something like that.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and like the moment that happened, I just kind of like I felt like I was on acid. Like
I know exactly what you're talking about. Where it sounds like it was just sampled off of
like
All Star.
Yeah. It's like it's almost like he's kind of in on the meme, even though it wasn't a meme when this song was made. And so it's this weird kind of like meta moment that's not actually meta because it's just me. It's just the meme is like made this funny like and he does it twice in the song. And I just kind of like that to me was just like the album was the emblematic of the experience of the album to me. It was just kind of like this trip through this weird mimetic hall of like trash that's just like we kind of like only kind of enjoyable to the extent that it can be kind of like ironically lambasted, like, or like ironically lionized or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's just I mean, I don't fucking know what to say because the fucking mid-stretch of this album, basically from, I think, radio to basically the rest of the album, is just such a fucking wasteland of just like weird clashing styles. Actually, I think it's the song Satellite where there's this fucking flamenco guitar, I think.
Yes.
In that song, which is just so surreal. That's a song after All Star as well.
Yes.
You go from a song like that to then Radio, which is this more kind of like, I think they're attempted kind of doing a garage rock song, which is just really
with a ton of Latin influence on it in terms of the guitar playing and Latin and Spanish, but yes, either way.
It's just very garish and strange. And then
it sort of opens the door for like the more ska stuff that happens in like the back end of the track list.
Yeah, totally.
You get like the trombone, not the trombone. Yeah, there's a trombone that like comes in, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so that's fine. That, I mean, it sucks, but I'm kind of like, I get they're trying to do some interesting shit for this at this point in the record. Then The Morning Comes, I actually think is like semi good even. I kind of don't hate that track. But then you go right into fucking Roadman, and it's like it's literally like we've derailed and we're a car on fire spinning into a field.
Roadman is not a song that you could make now and not get blown up for it.
No, like, absolutely. It's
you just could not do this. It's like a reggaeton pastiche that Steve Harwell is doing.
Exactly what I noticed about.
Oh, it's not just bad. It's like embarrassing and maybe vaguely offensive.
Yeah, and like he even copies the vocal patterns of some of the songs they're ripping off.
Well, and then like the bad part about it is like, okay, so I don't have any problem trashing Steve Harwell, who is kind of a jerk. But then like Paul Delisle is also doing it. Like there are backup vocals on that track, and bassist Paul Delisle comes in, and it's like, no, wait, you're one of the dudes I like complimenting because your bass lines are good sometimes, and it's just like he's also doing it. Roadman is a disaster.
It's
Yeah.
my
a
least
bad
favorite song on the record. Spoilers.
It might
so
be my
bad.
least favorite song. Like it's one of the worst things I've listened to in at least a year.
I think it's also kind of emblematic of a turn that this record takes into just like really awful decision making towards the end. Like there's just stuff that just sounds amusical. Like I'm thinking specifically of like the weird, I think one of the more ska-y tracks I think is Defeat You, which has this, it just sounds really just not musical at all. I hate it. But I can't really explain why, because this album literally defeated me to the point where I couldn't even write about it. I just had to subject myself to it. Yeah, I have about the song Home, I have, this is one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. I would wager actually that while Roadman is the clear nadir of the record, Home is almost as bad. It's played a little bit more straight. It's a little less obviously offensive, but it kind of digs into the same sort of like.
Here's the thing.
Vaguely
This is gonna
reggae parody.
This is gonna sound counterintuitive, but Roadman packs so much badness into 2.5 minutes that it like is the memorable low point.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely the 1-2 punch of badness here.
Definitely. And then the first time I listened to this, I was familiar with the song "Can't Get Enough of You, Baby," but like not like as a Smash Mouth song. I just knew when it started playing, I'm like, oh, I've heard this before. Oh, it's this band. Oh, it's this song. Oh, it sucks. And it's just it's not even one of the worst songs on the record. At least it like has a hook that they try to that fucking Steve hurt me
Steve
tries
Albini?
to Steve Albini tries to fucking make work, but it's just so
this album could have used Steve Albini.
Yeah.
Instead,
told
we
him to
got
scrap the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Steve Albini might have like beaten up Steve Harwell, like just fought him on the spot, just in the parking lot.
No, what he needed was Andy Serkis from 24 Hour Party People, his character in that movie, just to come in and say, "What the fuck are you doing?"
In a way that sort of happened.
Where they do the initial drum beat from Control. And he's just like, yeah, the drum beat's good, but everyone's fucking doing it. Now go on the roof with a cymbal and a snare drum and work something out.
Quick note on Can't Get Enough of You, Baby. As I mentioned at the beginning, this album reminded me of Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, and Can't Get Enough of You, Baby was, of course, in Austin Powers' Goldmember.
That actually, you know what? That might be why I remember the song.
This album has incredible Austin Powers energy. You will love it or hate it exactly as much as you hate the poop jokes in Austin Powers.
I mean, I feel about the same about it as I do about the Tom Cruise cameo in Goldmember.
When we're back to Tom Cruise, 1999 is like a nexus where everything and nothing happened. That's when The Matrix dropped, and like everything just
Fight Club.
Yeah. Wild time. Morgan again was born.
Dropped
that certainly had an impact.
Morgan dropped out of his mother's womb.
I am the sickest mixtape.
August, what are your thoughts, man? What did you feel about this?
Okay, my thoughts on this album are, first off, the producer. This made me shit my pants nearly. This is the same producer as Songs for the Deaf by Queens of the Stone Age.
Fuck. Wow.
That sounds like an ad-lib, but that is factual.
Another very nostalgic album for me that is good, though.
Yes,
yeah.
Definitely.
Some of these really are songs for the deaf.
Yeah.
He really moved on up.
Like
What a-
Steve Albini, I think that Josh would also beat up Steve Harwell on sight.
Yeah.
Like, just would see
The
him and
cigarette
drop.
in his eye.
Yeah.
Okay, so this album, what I think. So I think the opening kind of 5-ish songs are the album at its least offensive, relatively, because you've got Who's There, which of course establishes this kind of spacey vibe. You've got Diggin' Your Scene, which I think also kind of a fun song. All Star, of course, the highlight here. But the major thing I noticed here is that, and across this whole record, any electronic instrument just sounds like dog shit. Like, everything has just aged. The production has just aged ridiculously poorly on this album. Everything sounds so kind of very 90s, very corny. And I mean, if that could add to the charm for you, I could understand that, but I just found it to sound very ugly. Like, the keyboards on Diggin' Your Scene, I remember sounding really gross. The synthesizers just cheesy, like glitzy. It's almost like someone told me to like imagine what a bad score to like a 70s science fiction movie would sound like, and I would imagine the synths and keyboards.
You're so right, August, and yet that song, I don't know, it just works there.
No, it does, which is why I think that's one of the better songs here, because there are a lot of things where the dumb, cheesy aesthetic can work here, but I think as Zach made a great point of.
It's like you have a platter of like a bunch of like molded cheese, and like occasionally, like if you go to like Europe or some shit, like occasionally, like, because a lot of like beloved cheeses around the world are actually like molded and rotten and disgusting, but like that's apparently what makes them good. Bear with me here. This record is like a platter of those cheeses, and you have to try every single one, and they're all shit except for maybe one or two where you're like, okay, I can kind of get the vibe of why this is a popular cheese. But it doesn't at all redeem the fact that I've had to sample 13 other cheeses that taste like fucking a child's diaper.
Yeah. I'm really glad to this album now, because this is top tier content.
Yeah, no, that's
really painted a word picture there.
Yeah. One thing I have to say about the songwriting, though, is that it's almost, and this could be All Star being such a big song, but a lot of it feels very unmistakably Smash Mouth. Like, I have this weird indication that I can kind of pick out what a Smash Mouth song would be written like, juxtaposed against like other forgotten crappy 90s acts, which is weird. But this whole album, I just get that vibe of this kind of very incredibly playful cheesiness with these weird kind of occasional space pastiches thrown in the mix of this lyricism. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. Yeah, it's really just impossible to get, for me at least, to get past the fact that this album just has, it just all sounds so ugly to me. Like, I find the drums sound just mechanical, robotic. But like Zach said, then there's like the occasional guitar lick or bass line where it's like, someone tried there. But then Steve Harwell comes in singing as the void of charisma that he is. He is a man who has like the ability to sound like he's got like layers of bad auto-tune over him when
Well, his singing voice, it sounds like the audio version of a Bud Light Lime.
That's exactly right. That's precisely it. It would have been a Zima at the time. If you want to be period accurate, it would have been a Zima.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
No, it's just God. He is just awful. He makes every song he's on.
Which is all of them.
Which is all of them. He is consistently the worst part of it, except for the rare moment in the Hadron Super Collider when the two atoms hit each other and form a miniature black hole or something. Yeah, that's this album. Just it's garbage. It's 15 songs long, which makes it. I mean, I feel that for me is the problem. The just scope of the track list, that everything feels. It feels so much longer by virtue of one idea starting and then stopping and then having to go through that over and over, especially once you get past All Star, where it just fades into this monotony of bad, embarrassing ideas. But that's about what I have to say about Astro Lounge as an album.
One thing I want to add, because I sense we're heading into some all-star discourse, or we may or may not be, but I just discovered this. Forgive me if this is something that everyone already knew, but All-Star was nominated for a Grammy.
It was.
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah. So that took me a good fucking minute to process.
Well,
so do we want to talk about All Star, or do other people have other album thoughts?
I haven't technically reviewed the album yet.
Review the album.
Okay. I mean, look, I can sort of
Do it.
do it as like a transitionary note, I guess. The thing is, Shrek is a meme, you know. And you go back and you watch those first two Shrek movies, and they're very good movies. And I feel very similarly about, well, for a start, the song All Star, but then, at least at the beginning, I go back to listen to the record, and it opens with Who's There. It has a theremin in it. It has these hard charged guitars. As I said before on the Portishead episode, you give me a theremin, I am weaker than ease for you. And it just has this boisterous energy where they are obnoxious, douchebaggy, buffoon-like, and they know and don't care. And you just get swept up in this sort of irreverent stupidity. It's like watching it's like watching Dumb and Dumber.
It's like watching Dumb and Dumberer when Harry met Lloyd.
It's Austin Powers. It's Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. That's the movie.
Well, what I mean by the Dumb and Dumber comparison is that's a film I find genuinely funny because the film makes you love the idea of being a fucking moron and you just go with everything. At least at the beginning of this album with the song Who's There, even Digging Your Scene is just really, really fun. It has this kind of old school sound. There's many cuts on the record, this included, that I define as Snatch official soundtrack core. I have issues with I Just Want to See and Waste. I think the vocals on Waste are mixed like ass, but I quite like the chord progression. I think I Just Want to See is just kind of boring. All Star is just a indestructibly good song. And even then, after that, with a song like Satellite, which is also trying to sound like sultry, which is...
Satellite's the craziest song on this album. It's honestly the weirdest, and most interesting because it's so... What is this? Why are all these things here together?
The thing is, if I take it as part of the first half, I go with it on a kind of just like stupid oafishness, or I'm just like, I am the bull in the china shop. But if I look at it as part of the back half of the record, it suddenly seems like one of many collections of very loosely connected and ill thought out musical concepts. So it's good that it's sort of sandwiched between All Star and Radio in that respect, because Radio is another, fundamentally just sort of irreverent big loud rock song. It's not being very ambitious. It's just got these crunchy riffs that goes into sort of very proto power pop punk verses. And I wrote down in my notes that, like, if you like any song that Bowling for Soup have done, you'll probably find something to like in Radio. But then it goes into these very kind of synth-driven 80s throwback bridges and pre-choruses. So again, Radio, emblematic of the album in that it's sort of in the first half, in that it's just sort of irreverent and fun, but sort of in the back half in that it's mismatched as anything. And yeah, then the middle section is a particular dirge for me, bottoming out on Roadman. But I think Come On, and Can't Get Enough of You, Baby, comparatively, they are not as good as the first half, but it's like the album starts there and then goes right down and then just kind of gets like half an inch back up at the end. There is a really lovely bass line in Come On, and the organs and guitars fit really well together. Kind of feels like a version of what a band like the Hoosiers would later really refine. Well, they'd do a bit better. So overall, I am glad that I talked about this album, because it has given me not only a better understanding of where the cultural idea of Smash Mouth came from, but also their strengths and weaknesses. And I can now approach them much better as a band who made music and existed as a band and not just a punchline. That being said, if we want to talk about All Star, this song is so good. It is, why is it on this record? It should be on a better record, but I feel like it is also exactly representative of what this record is trying to be, but they purposefully set out with Smash Mouth to write the best song they would ever write. They were like sat down and they were like, we are going to pull out all of the stops and we are going to write the best song that we are capable of writing.
Would you like to hear the story of the writing of the song All Star? Because
I have not elaborated on my feelings on this album at all.
That's true. Yeah, so go ahead, talk about that, and then
I'm very excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. So
well, you can stop being excited, because I think the record's bad. It's just, but it's not. It's bad in interesting ways. Sometimes, like at least the offensive moments are really just swinging for it. At least they went for something. But I feel like the majority of this 50-minute album, 50-minute Smash Mouth album is just thoroughly mediocre, middling rock, ska infused songs. It's just there's so many strange choices, just like strange and ill-advised decision making on here. It is extraordinarily dated. Like, I feel like something like Turning Japanese is less dated than Smash Mouth's Astro Lounge.
It's a great song.
But it's a good song, but it is fucking dated as anything.
Yeah.
Very tasteless today.
Yeah, but also Astro Lounge. It's just, I'm glad everybody else seems to have something to say, because this is just the most bland. It's like Kraft macaroni and cheese. It's just edible.
It's like Kraft macaroni and cheese, and then somebody threw like strawberry jelly in there or something stupid, like just something completely. Every bite, Steve Harwell comes as you take a forkful of your macaroni and cheese and sprinkles something random on there every single time.
What it is ranch sauce. It's ranch sauce. That's it.
Yeah, and it's also like you didn't heat it up all the way, so like it's a little cold. Just throwing.
But every once in a while, you get a forkful and you're like, "Oh, macaroni and cheese, cool."
Yeah, it's like it did heat up right.
I'm gonna take another bite. It still tastes like
You're like only in the middle because it's a microwave and you put it on for 2 minutes.
It's like if you made Kraft macaroni and cheese in the microwave, and then you couldn't finish it, so you froze it for whatever reason, and then you reheated it, but you didn't reheat it properly, so like the top of it's warm, and then once you start eating it properly, it's like really cold inside.
And then someone just came in and put semen on it.
And
what do you mean? Wait, what do you mean? Like that's not, you don't normally have it that way? I'm just kidding.
And then it's like is it Roadman? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That's like when you forget to take it out of the plastic, and it just heats up and it just melts into the macaroni and cheese.
It's just literally like someone walking into your home and just sprinkling anthrax on it.
Bam.
So, do you want to hear the story about the history of All Star? Because
I think I know it. But please get into it.
So, Morgan was talking about how this is a 15-minute album. Well, it used to be a 45-minute album because it used to only have 13 songs. Basically, when the band went to turn in the album to the label, again, this is their second record, the studio executive listened to it and said, I don't hear a hit, and kind of made this case about how if you don't have a single on this album, everybody's just going to remember you as that band that did Walking on the Sun, which is a quaint thing to think in retrospect that anybody would remember this band for Walking on the Sun, which was as ephemeral as the rest of it. Which is part of the reason why I think All Star is such an interesting song, is because Walking on the Sun and excuse me, let me not go too far out of order. So what happened was, this was told to guitarist Greg Camp, who is the primary songwriter for the band. And he went home and listened to the radio and studied all of the top singles. And in particular was really inspired by 1 Week by the Bare Naked Ladies, another song that...
God, here we go. This makes so much fucking sense.
And so that's another song that starts like All Star with no music but vocals. That very memorable, and it's band, and then somebody, and that little, that's the only good thing that Steve Harwell has contributed to America or society at large, is the delivery of the somebody. But guitarist Greg Camp went and essentially studied on how he felt was the best way to make a contemporary single, and studied as much as he could, and he came back with 2 songs, and the 2 songs were, of course, All Star and Then the Morning Comes. And you can really feel that, I think, when you listen to those 2 songs. They don't, the back half of this album is like really scattered to me and doesn't ever feel really cohesive, but like those 2 just, they feel after the fact, like you can tell. And one of them, Then the Morning Comes, feels really of a piece with everything else happening on the album. Who cares? And then there's All Star, which everybody kind of remembers it because of Shrek, of course. But that's not really the genesis of the song. The song was huge before Shrek. In fact, when the executive producers over at DreamWorks picked up that song, it had already been in Rat Race. It had already been in I think it's Mystery Men with Ben Stiller, and
that's the one.
Oh gosh, William H. Macy. And, yeah, right. I believe the music video for All Star is that film. I think it's like Janeane Garofalo and all that stuff. And like it just like, and then it's Steve Harwell's like walking down the road. But the thing about All Star that's just crazy to me, like it's really crazy, is Walking on the Sun was a single. Tub Thumping, which I could not remember the title of, is it's a song that I know the tune to. But All Star has had an insane afterlife to me. Like just the way that so someone was told, a guitarist in a mediocre soft rock kind of ska pop rock band was told, you need to go write a single. And he went home and he wrote the fucking single of the 90s, like in terms of mimetic ability to fucking plaster itself onto the inside of your skull, never let you forget that fucking song exists. Like, for better or worse, it's just like, I am so in awe of the power that song has, in the sense of like, it's basically, you know, if it were easy to make a single, every single band would do it, because that's how you pay your bills, right? The fact that this song has such an afterlife is absolutely the reason that anybody knows who Smash Mouth is. It's the reason that Steve Harwell has gotten a paycheck for the royalties from the Shrek soundtrack or whatever, right? Like, everybody would make a song like this, but people don't. And the ones that do don't have this kind of shelf life. And so there's like, before you even really get into trying to figure out like, what is it about the songwriting? What is it about the playing that makes this thing different? It's just impressive to kind of like look at that, to me, like to look at its kind of cultural impact, whether you see it as kind of a meme and you think that the song is bad, or you genuinely think the song is good. I just think that that kind of thing, like to create that and to create it on like off the cuff, you know what I mean? Like under duress, like your teacher told you, go write a paper, and then you came back and you wrote, you know, a book that you wrote Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, right? Same kind of thing. It's not a great book, but it's a book that fucking everyone knows. Like it was this moment, it was a zeitgeist. And then beyond the zeitgeist, it lasted, and it's just fucking crazy to me. So that's kind of my take on All Star. Like that's how I feel.
Similar to like, it gives me the same kind of vibe, like in terms of that narrative, as like Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, for instance.
Totally, which is a better song, by the way, in terms of like defending the honor of Mimi singles. Never Gonna Give You Up fucking whips. Like that song's genuinely good.
Fantastic song.
Honestly,
so
that's
good.
why it's my background. Because it's good.
That was subconsciously in my mind. Yeah.
Like you look at songs that made it onto the Shrek soundtrack or were sung by characters. You get stuff like Daydream Believer by the Monkees, Holding On for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler, I think. And you get People Ain't No Good by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
That was my introduction to Nick Cave, Shrek 2.
And you get Leonard Cohen. I mean, like, as corny as that needle drop is, like, Leonard Cohen's on that soundtrack, you know?
Not to mention Smash Mouth again with I'm a Believer.
Right, which was just as big at the time, to be clear. It hasn't had the shelf life that All Stars had, which I think is a layer of All Star being, but that I'm a Believer was fucking as everywhere as All Star was for like a 2 to 3 year period.
Well,
but that was a cover, I think.
Well, So's Can't Get Enough of You Baby is also a cover. But like they kind of really make both of those songs their own. Whether that's a compliment or not is
sure. But I suppose my point is that I suspect they chose a song because it was actually good. But yeah, like the thing is about Smash Mouth is it is a song that so perfectly captures just shameless youthful ambition at the beginning, at least, and it's just got these very strange, quirky images. It feels so Gen Z. That feels so like disaffected 90s teenager. Like I would picture some of the people in this song appearing in like 10 Things I Hate About You, or something like that. But
or like fucking, I don't know. I was gonna say an early Kevin Smith movie, but I don't even think that's right either.
No.
You know, Camp said when he wrote it, the idea behind the song was to create the idea, not behind the song, but behind the lyrics, was to create like an "I will survive" type of like positivity anthem for like schlubby kids, basically, like nerds, like dorks.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, the thing is, like lyrics like "so much to do, so much to see. What's wrong with taking the back streets? You never know. If you don't go, you'll never shine. If you don't glow." Like those lyrics are engraved on internet culture's headstone. But if you take them out of context, they are fundamentally silly. But that's the point. It's just shameless. It's shamelessness of being like just going along with this kind of naff thing that fundamentally, if you put aside your misgivings or your coolness, you know, they are fun and motivational if you let yourself go with it in that shameless way. You know, or the line, all that glitters is gold, a subversion of the idiom, all that glitters isn't gold. You know, only shooting stars break the mold. It's a meme, but I genuinely love that line on the level of being motivational. And it's so weird going back to this album at the time in my life where I'm at, under this pandemic conditions, where I have had to totally reevaluate what my goals are and put several long-term dreams on complete hold. I'm having to find new dreams. I'm talking about how coming back to All-Star in the pandemic has meant something to me. What is my life?
I know, that's why I was just laughing, because I was like, where are you going with this?
It's true, though.
Yeah.
And, you know, the fact is, the ice we skate is getting pretty thin, and the wood is getting warm, so the world is on fire.
Yeah, no, I thought about that line, too, a lot. I was like, wow, that's actually kind of... There's actually like something, a thread of something there.
Yeah.
Like, the line is the water's getting warm, so you might as well swim, which I think if you want to apply
it's a very
like
Makoto Shinkai kind of philosophy about like, hey, everything sucks, just like go with it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
Like
it's the youthful. Yeah, it's that youthful idea of like, what is it, in Lost River, where they go to an abandoned warehouse in their dead town and have this really lovely dance in this dead fucking site.
No, but like it's almost a Buddhist sentiment as well. Like if you take those lines on the face of them, like, you know, the water is getting warm, so you might as well swim. Only shooting stars break the mold. All that glitters, whatever. I don't know where I'm going with that.
They're like cones. They're like little sayings.
Smash mouth.
One note that I think is pretty interesting about the "All that glitters is gold" line is actually that was not the original lyric.
You're right.
On the handwritten lyrics that Camp wrote, he felt really. This is weird because it's like I don't think that any of us sort of feel like Smash Mouth has this great integrity to them. But at the time, you know, he's being told by a record executive, hey, you have to go make me a single. And it was feeling very bad about this. And so that original lyric, instead of all that glitters is gold, was say bye-bye to your soul, which is like really dark and like messed up. And like eventually, obviously, was changed and like kind of now matches the more positive tone of the song. But I've always kind of found that to be like a weird... like, woof, okay, so this, like, he had some misgivings about like doing this in the first place, and
I wonder how he feels now that the song has basically become their identity as a band, like to the point, not even just like in the immediate aftermath, like now in 2020, if they were to play a show, you know, people are going to come to All-Star, and
actually, I have a story about that. If you will indulge me, because
people got COVID.
People
got COVID to hear all.
I have seen Smash Mouth live, actually.
Oh shit! No kidding! Wow.
Genuinely, I have seen them live. I was at a.
Did they play Roadman?
Context here is, and this is important context. I was at an event, like back when I was in like middle school. I was in Boy Scouts, and I went to this camp, and there Smash Mouth was actually performing for like these 100 people from like, I don't know, Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, this kind of tri-state area. Smash Mouth was performing there. And I
very
distinctly,
like rural.
At this kids camp.
This is
17 or whatever.
Smash Mouth had a whole big stage, and I distinctly remember not sitting through the whole show because they didn't play All Star.
Really?
And
Wow.
I distinctly remember going back to my tent because I was like, wow, the rest of this is really boring. I want to hear All Star. And that was back in like 2015. So I think that's an interesting point of context.
Maybe the kind of Zoomer meme had not yet taken hold with that song. I'm not too sure. It feels like a more thing than 2015 sounds about right. I don't know.
But the point is, I was like aware enough of All Star and how like ubiquitous of a song it was for the band that I just wanted them to play that song, and they didn't, so I was bummed.
Yeah, it's really interesting to like read about the sort of background of this being like, you need a single or people are gonna think that you're a one-hit wonder, and then they like created the one hit. Like,
and I think this is also really interesting in the context of a studio like whatever they are, DreamWorks, making a film like Shrek and Shrek 2, which were completely sort of making fun of the completely shiny corporate interest of Disney.
Yeah, sure.
I also just want to shout out the samples of "Go for the Moon" that happen like 2/3 of the way through this, sort of like "Go for the Moon." It's just such a fun, satisfying moment in the song. So that caps off my all-star analysis. It's a bop, and it kind of deserves a better record, but also I'm deeply unsurprised this is a record it's on.
Yeah. Well, okay. Should we wrap this up, or does anyone else have anything they want to add?
Well, I was looking at Wikipedia, and I found some interesting stuff.
All right.
Just
give it to us.
Nothing particularly illuminating, just things I thought were funny.
Okay.
It is set in the key of F sharp major with a tempo of 104 beats per minute. Writers have described it musically as alternative rock and power pop.
All right.
Camp stated that he was interested in in exploring several layers of meaning with the stripped down song, the social battle cry, the sports anthem, the fan base affirmation, the poetic lyricism, the sweeping melody, the inclusion, the artistic music videos, and more.
Some real choice song information from the Wikipedia page for this album. Can't Get Enough of You, Baby. In early 2007, Pizza Hut aired a series of commercials featuring Can't Get Enough of You, Baby of the band. And Come On, Come On was featured in a Gap commercial. And
the one about which one was Roadman in?
I'll read that in a second. Come On, Come On was featured in a Gap commercial and the films Big Fat Liar, Dude, Where's My Car, Snow Day, and Juice Bigelow, Male Gigolo.
Wow. The 2000s really were a decade, weren't
Afternoon Drive personality Kenny Rhoda uses Roadman as a bumper for his radio show, heard in Cleveland, Ohio, on ESPN 850 WKNR.
I don't like that.
Yep.
That's a song that should have been forgotten. I do think I like talking about this album a little bit because it's just sort of like there's a thing about it that everybody knows, and otherwise it would have been a completely forgettable record, right? Yeah. Like no one would have revisited this. We wouldn't be talking about it if not for this thing. But there's just like this very innocuous piece of media that within it had something that was gonna kind of last forever.
I mean, I do have an absolute like morbid fascination with like forgotten widgets of culture, like these stones of culture, where if you unturn them, there's all of these kind of seething bugs underneath, which I classify Astro Lounge and Smash Mouth and All Star as. Just these things about culture that have just been kind of left behind in weird ways. I just think that shit's really interesting.
It's just one really random fact about this band that I find amusing is that in 2005 they put out a Christmas covers album called The Gift of Rock.
In a similar way to that, I was listening to an acoustic rendition of Walking on the Sun prior to joining this call with you guys. I don't recommend it.
Do you guys want to know what the greatest hits album for Smash Mouth is called?
I already know because I'm looking at it, but you say.
Yeah, it's the All-Star Greatest Hits.
Jesus.
That's like the school mentality in America about teaching about the world history, All Star and the rest.
This compilation has a fucking Steely Dan cover on it.
Okay, so
I mean, in a way, Astro Lounge does already feel like a compilation album of a one-hit wonder. Where it's like, you have this one great song, a couple of all right songs, and a load of ideas that don't connect together at all.
I think the word that has been escaping us that for some reason no one has said in this entire hour-plus discussion is filler.
Yeah.
filler. Yeah, that's it.
It's
So,
filler the album.
On filler the
But
album.
what's weird is that the filler, in theory, spaces out everything except for the thing that they added as filler. Like the actual filler of the album is the memorable part of the album, which is an interesting quirk. Like you wouldn't have expected it to go that way.
No,
how it
that's
went.
true. So should we wrap this up now?
Yeah, let's do
wrap
it.
this up with our favorite
Before
track.
we go on any longer.
Favorite tracks and
Well, I
ratings.
had some more things I wanted to read.
Yeah, go on.
before I
Do?
was so rudely
Do it.
interrupted.
Do it.
Okay, no, please.
I can't
I
Finish
want to
up.
hear it.
So there are a few movies that this song has been in. The aforementioned Rat Race, Mystery Men, and Shrek being notable. It was also featured in the 1999 Matthew Broderick vehicle Inspector Gadget,
Oh wow.
and in Digimon the movie, which, as I go further down the rabbit hole here, was directed by Mamoru Hosoda, director of Wolf Children, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and Mirai. Which
Digimon
is-
the movie.
There's a lot there.
There-
I remember being
Too
into
much.
Digimon as a kid.
Yeah. Okay, so the music video was part of Mystery Men, but it was not directed by whoever directed Mystery Men. 3 guesses as to who directed the video for Smash Mouth's All Star.
Was it David Fincher?
Brian De
not.
Palma.
Nope.
Oh, I have one. What's the guy who directed The Cell?
Tarsem Singh.
Tarsem
well,
Singh, was it?
It's none of those things. It's the exact person you would expect to direct the video
Is
for
it
Smash Mouth's All Star.
Brett
Is
Ratner?
it Steve Harwell?
Mick
himself?
G.
Ooh.
Gee. Big G. What a piece of work.
That's the perfect summation of this.
And one more thing.
One more thing.
There's a
All
live
right.
performance section here. There's a June 14th, 2015 performance of the song at Taste of Fort Collins event in Fort Collins, Colorado. Went awry after members of the audience started throwing loaves of bread onto the stage. While the rest of the band repeated the opening riff of All Star, Steve Harwell began a 3-minute
Well,
profanity-filled
stop
verbal
coming, and they
tirade
stop coming, and they don't stop
against
coming, and they don't
against the
stop coming.
crowd, with him threatening to beat up anyone who threw more things onto the stage. Security restrained Harwell after he tried to enter the crowd. The band continued playing while the crowd sang the song in place of him.
I'm just imagining that opening riff on repeat and Steve Harwell's just screaming, fuck you all, you fucking pieces of shit.
It's like the end of
shit
Shit
for
Rock
15
Anthem.
years.
I'm imagining that happening at the Boy Scout event.
You know what I mean? Imagine Steve Harwell being dragged off stage and the crowd sings the song in place of him is the ideal way to listen to All Star.
And then, yes.
Fantastic.
So favorite.
That
tracks
is
and
a phenomenal note
ratings.
to end on, I think.
Let's do it. And we're bookending with cats as well.
Oh, how
One sec.
cute. Right. What
can grab mine.
so as Zach is our lovely guest, let's let Zach go first and then go on
Zach.
reverse.
Yeah,
So you want 1, 2, 3 favorites? I have to find 3 favorites. And
Well,
then one
you don't
least
have to
favorite?
order them. You don't have to order them, but you can if
3
you want.
favorites, least favorite, and a rating.
All right.
As many favorites as you can feasibly get.
Try to-
Maximum 3.
Zach, try to restrain yourself.
Listen, there's a cat who is attacking my headphones right now. All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right, favorite songs. Digging Your Scene, All Star. And I guess Come On. And least favorite song is clearly Roadman. Like I said, I'm pretty sure Roadman's the worst thing I've listened to in 2020. And maybe 2019. I don't know. It's very bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So-
What's your rating, Zach?
My rating would be, I think I threw a 4 on it this morning, but I think I'm going to lower that down to a 3. I think it's a 3 out of 10.
Okay. 3 out of 10.
Delightful.
Understandable.
August, do you want to go next?
Sure. 3 favorite tracks here from me are pretty obvious. Who's There, Digging Your Scene, and All Star. Least favorite is, you know the one. It's The Roadman. This album's getting a 3 out of 10.
Neat. Morgan.
Fantastic. Morgan.
So, All Star is the clear standout here. I gotta say, I think the verses are great. I think the chorus sucks. It's a switch up from the song, and it just kind of, but it's a good song.
I like the way it uses an augmented C in the chorus. It adds a dynamic to it. But that's me.
Yeah. But I also find it's just, I don't know. It's hard having an opinion on All Star.
That's fair.
Who fucking cares about the rest of the album? Least favorite, the white man reggae one.
Yeah.
3.
Okay. So that's me. My 3 favorites are All Star. I guess Who's There. I'm going to go Digging Your Scene. My least favorite is Roadman. Of course, it's Roadman. And I'm giving the album a 5 out of 10.
Ooh.
Okay, so for me, the 3 best tracks in order are Digging Your Scene, Who's There, and All Star. Look, Roadman is the worst thing on this album, but I'm going to shout out Home as my least favorite track just because I think it's basically as bad, to be honest. It's equally offensive in terms of a reggae parody. It's not intended to be parody. But yeah, there's so much shit on this album. 3 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's a final rating of 3.4. For context, the only other albums we have given in the 3-point bracket is Logic's No Pressure and Biffy Clyro's A Celebration of Endings.
Wow.
All right, that's
in good company.
I'm not offended by that where it's sitting. It certainly does not deserve to be sitting with As the Eternal Cowboy and Peaceful as Hell.
Yeah,
Certainly
agreed.
But yeah, thank you to our special guest Zach for joining us yet again.
Yes,
you gave so much this episode. You were so good.
It was,
Do you want to
love having you here.
Do you want to come back next week and we can do like Alien Ant Farm?
We gotta do the double Annie, are you okay? Do like the Michael Jackson Alien Ant Farm episode.
Wow.
Yeah. I have thoughts actually on that cover. I actually quite enjoy that cover.
I'm with you. I like
it's
it
not
too.
a bad idea.
Yeah.
And the other
It's
single
true.
off of that album, Movies, is really good.
It is good.
Yeah,
It is a
great
good
Wise
song.
Blood song.
Just a reprieve of Liz Fair Rolling Stones format.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right.
thank you for watching. Please let us know in the comments what you think of Smash Mouth's Astro Lounge if you've heard it.
No,
or
please
your
do.
relationship with Smash Mouth is in any form. Next week on our Record Club review, we're going to be reviewing Square Pusher's Ultra Visitor, which is
That's yours.
my choice.
That's a left
So,
turn.
I don't imagine there'll be much overlap in interest for audience between those 2 albums, but please tune in anyway. Thank you for watching.
I got the. I'll do
August,
it. Yeah.
you go for it.
Rock Over London, Rock on Chicago, MasterCard. There are some things money can't buy.